So, I don't want to drift too far into the world of gender stereotypes, but if your family resembles mine just a little bit, then you might find that the person in your household that seems to not hear often is the father, and the person that seems to never stop talking is the mother. And maybe somehow between the two of them, we have one whole healed person that can both hear and speak. And I think those are pretty common experiences in our lives. And when I make home visits or encounter some of our more elderly parishioners, then at least the husbands have the advantage of blaming their hearing aids. But I think what that reality speaks to in our own lives is our challenge to truly be open. For that is the proclamation Jesus uses to heal this deaf man. He groans to heaven, "Be open." It's more than simply, "Let him hear." How often is our own deafness the result not of our inability to perceive sound, but of our determination to have already prejudged what we're going to receive? When we look at this miraculous healing in the gospel, of course it's something that defies physical realities. It's Christ coming and healing someone who cannot hear, giving speech to one who struggles to speak. And that's true. It's an affirmation of Christ's own identity, as we hear in Isaiah, that when we know that our God is with us, the deaf will hear, the mute will speak, the blind will see. But that's also a testament to this profound sense of transformation that the ancient prophets foretold that Christ would bring about. It's not simply a statement of not hearing and now hearing. It's a statement of the world having been one way and now it is another. It was closed and now it is open. Just like all the other imagery we heard in the first reading. The streams bursting forth in the desert. Of the pools of hot sand turning into pools of water. It's a testament to what an authentic encounter with Christ brings about. Which is so much more than simply taking something that was broken and making it fixed. Because I think all of us, in some way, have journeyed with someone experiencing some disability, either in ourselves or in our family. We know that simply not hearing or not speaking or not walking or not seeing doesn't mean that we're broken people. What Jesus is giving insight to is the fact that his presence transforms our world. Doesn't fix it, but makes it totally other. I spend probably too much time on social media, and a few months ago in my Facebook news feed came up this little story about an evangelical Protestant pastor who was coming to his megachurch for the first time. And so he comes to the first service that he's going to be introduced at, but he doesn't let anyone know who he is yet. He shows up dressed as though he was a man having to live on the street. Someone experiencing homelessness. And he just kind of navigates the crowds, the thousands of people gathering in their big arena church. And he sees how people respond to him. And in many ways they respond to him just the way any other part of the world would. Until finally they announce that their new pastor has arrived, and assumed he must be there somewhere because he hadn't come to greet the MC beforehand. And it's then that he emerges from the crowd and ascends to the pulpit. He came to see how well the people he was called to shepherd could hear the voice of God. As we heard from St. James in the second reading, that we are to show no partiality, that when we enter this space, that when we come together as a body of Christ, because Christ truly is present, that our world should look and feel radically different. And how uncomfortable can that be at times? It's a huge challenge, each and every day for each and every one of us, myself included. To say that those instincts that we have that says, I don't really need to know you or hear you or see you because I already know who you are and what you do. And to set that aside. For those of us in our families who can't hear, to say, maybe she's not just telling me the same thing again for the 500th time. Maybe there's something new in that voice. And even if there isn't, maybe there's something I have yet to truly hear. But when we are truly opened, when we can really perceive the world around us and the other as they are, not as we've decided they should be, it's then that just as the deaf man in today's gospel is given the gift, we are able to speak. We exist in a profoundly divided society right now, and I don't think anyone would dispute that. And I think at its core is because we choose not to hear. And oftentimes we begin speaking before we've ever taken the time to listen. And even in the challenges and crises we're facing as a church now, are in many ways the result of us having not heard well what others have spoken, and therefore having left ourselves mute and unable to cry out for justice. For when we are truly open, when we can truly perceive the gift of the presence of the other in all of their complexity, and all of their brokenness, and all of their need, and all of their gifts, then that gives us the capacity through our own empowerment to speak well, to seek justice, to make peace. It's then that our community no longer shows partiality. It's then that we embody what St. James has called us to. It's then that when the world looks at us as a community of faith, they see what Isaiah proclaimed. And not just the external signs of miracles, but the internal disposition that says things are different here. They are different here because Christ is present. Christ is present here on this altar. But because of that, he is present in us as his body. And so the challenge that leads us to, in our call to openness to the world that surrounds us, is to recognize that the very means by which Christ brought hearing and speech to this man was through a deeply intimate encounter. He takes him aside. He places his fingers in his ears. He touches his tongue. And maybe so much that has fractured us as a church in today's world isn't just that we've forgotten to listen, and so we don't know how to speak, but that we've forgotten how to reach out and touch one another well. We hear so much now about the negative kinds of touch that we can share as human beings. Destructive, abusive encounters. But what does it mean to encounter each other well? In a godly way. In a way that's seeking to encounter and uphold one another in our suffering and our pain and our brokenness. Not to exploit those realities, but to seek to heal them. If we desire to be that prophetic sign to the world that Isaiah calls us to, that St. James requests of us, we need to be open to one another, open to the world, but also be willing to encounter each other in our profound humanity and even in our weakness, so that together we can say, our world can be different. There is another way.